Hello and welcome to episode 130 of Random Encounter, the RPG fan podcast. I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me today is fellow necromancer enthusiast, Michael Solosi.
Hi, Mike Solosi, Monsoon on the boards, and I haven't bought the Necro yet, but I really want to. There's just too many games at all times, man.
It has been an insane year for video games. Yeah, 2017 can go to hell with how much it's hurt my wallet, and there's too many games. I'm
buying two $80 special editions in September alone. My wallet's weeping, man.
Okay, what are those two special editions? We're going to judge you here.
Danganronpa V3 and Ys 8.
Okay, I can judge you on one of those because after you've played one Ys game, haven't you played them all?
Take that back, you slut.
Somewhere Derek just got very angry, but he's not here today. He's at Anime Expo, so I get away with it. So, moving on, we have Happy Canada Day to Steph Sabidlo.
Wubba-lubba-dub-dub.
Oh, God. 150 years of Canadian independence, correct?
Yes, it's wonderful. We have a very lovely country, sort of.
You have a very lovely leader. Trudeau he's a handsome dude.
We're hoarding all of our national resources until, the World War III finally happens.
I'm just going to imagine that the whole world will turn into Mad Max except Canada. Canada's going to
It'll be a green, lush paradise and the ugly tundra.
Yeah,
they have so many freshwater resources that an Immortan Joe scenario seems impossible. Impossible.
I mean, it'll just be great up there. It'll be really cold, though, which I'm not a huge fan of.
Global climate change, man. It's going to be the only not cold place.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Maybe it'll become temperate?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be okay.
It'll level out. Yeah, it'll be just nice.
And then you will hear no objections from him. Ladies and gentlemen, he's back to the podcast. Jesse Wu, everybody.
Yeah, those jokes still happening, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, I if you were on more regularly, then I would remember that I've made those jokes, and then I would have to come up with new material. But, the classics still fit. They do.
I'm really impressed that you come up with so many unique ones.
I try. I mean, there's a skill to it. I don't really have it, but, I give it the old college try. Jesse, how you doing, sir?
Oh, it's great. It's a beautiful day in Seattle.
Rainy?
Do you hear the blues are coming with tossed salads and scrambled eggs?
Oh my God, Frasier! A Frasier reference? Really? That's what we just did?
He was the one doing the scatting in that, Frasier.
Oh yeah, but
oh wow.
We have a bunch of people who are Steph's not 30. Jesse, you're how old?
I'm 30.
Okay, so we got a bunch of 30-year-olds here and Steph who just turned 20-ish. Let's say that. I don't know if you're sensitive about your age, and I realized that as I was making the joke. So, but happy birthday to you, Steph.
Thank you.
Yes, you have a birthday. Your birthday coincides with Canada's national holiday, and that there's something lovely about that. Did you have?
And this time of year, because I'm born this time of year, I'm a Cancer.
Oh boy. Okay, so we got games to talk about. Nothing really hot on the docket. What? Oh my God, help me! All right,
the topic docket.
I don't even know what's going on. Oh, God, Morty. But, some quick hits today, and then, some general thoughts on what's coming up the rest of the year. I want to ask Jesse what he thought of who is slurping right now. What was that? What was that?
I honestly thought I muted.
Oh, my God. just mute yourself before you start eating, Steph. Jesus. Okay.
I did.
But I also want to get people's perspective now that we're a couple weeks out from E3, and I don't even know anymore, but I just want to get people's thoughts on it. I want to get Jesse's opinions on it because he was not at the show, and I think he got to experience a better show than what we got. But let's start off with what Mike and I were talking about a little bit at the start. The Necromancer is out for Diablo 3, and all is right with the world.
Yeah, that's right. And it was a $15 download that gives you 2 extra character slots and access to the male and female Necromancer class, and people are having a lot of fun with it, man. Every video I've seen looks so cool. RPG fan editor at large John Tucker has been playing with him a lot and posting videos, and he's real excited. I will get to that eventually when I want more Diablo 3 in my life, which is often, but there's just too many games right now, but I will get to that soon.
I've put a little bit of time into it. I was in the public test realm for the Necro for a little bit, and then I bought the download. I know a lot of people were kind of scoffing at the price. I would have said maybe $10. I think 15 is that's a commitment, but still, we're talking like one pizza. It's not a huge
Right.
amount of money.
And I don't think it makes any real world changes. Like there's no new dungeon or anything, but
No.
I think there might be access to Necromancer set dungeons.
I think the whole thing would have gone better if they had released a full expansion with the Necromancer, but I
Right,
don't
sure.
know. I don't know what the long-term game plan is for Diablo 3. This might be the last thing that Diablo 3 ever gets. We don't really know.
We have talked about the monetization of Diablo on this podcast before, and I think this is them experimenting. Like they want to see what kind of demand there is for payable Diablo content, and if this Necromancer pack is really successful, then we could get an expansion or more character packs like this before Diablo 4. But if it's not, this is all that's all speculation. I'm glad that the Necromancer at least seems fun and looks cool. And I want to play them. I would totally do a multiple Necromancer run, but yeah, I haven't played it. I had too many games. I haven't played it yet.
He's a really interesting character class. So the Necromancer in Diablo 2 was, I'd like to say, a little passive if you played a heavy summoner build. Like you really didn't have to do much. You just kind of stood around and let your army of skeletons tear people up.
You have to kill that first monster to get a skeleton, though.
Yeah, you go up and whack it with your wand, and then you get that first skeleton.
In Hell, that was a challenge.
Yes, it was.
If you started fresh from like Hell Act 1, sometimes it was really hard to kill that first goat or fallen or whatever to get your skeletons running.
They've made a very aggressive spellcaster now. Like Corpse Explosion is just nutty. Like they've neutered it a little bit. It's not as overwhelmingly powerful as it was in vanilla Diablo 2. But like when the bodies start hitting the floor, yes, go ahead and sing that wonderful anthem from like early 2000. But like when things
hit the floor,
stop it. Like I'm watching old school WWF right now. It's terrible. Oh, Jesus. And so like then you just start blowing up corpses. People die super fast. Like the Necro can wipe out a mob in like a second. It is really, really fun. I know there's been a little bit of pushback from some people saying that he seems a little too powerful, but I think
come on.
Well, I think the Diablo philosophy of like, well, don't neuter a character class, make the other ones better is the best policy. Like, I think that was their guiding principle for Diablo 3, and that's one of the reasons why that game is so damn fun. And I go back to every other loot game that I've tried to play in a post-Diablo 3 world has felt very creaky and very old. Like all of those games like Path of Exile, Torchlight 2, they're all fine, but they're all trying to make Diablo 2 again. And I think there was something to be said for Diablo 3 making a very visceral, isometric action RPG that still feels great. I mean, when you bust out Disintegrate as a wizard, that is an awesome feeling where you just Kamehameha like everything all around. It is...
To be fair, it took a while to get to that point.
It really did. No, it did. I mean, that game had significant problems when it first came out, but by the time they put the adventure mode in, and then with the Reaper of Souls expansion, what did Steven used to say on the podcast? Like, if this was EA, we would have been on Diablo 6 by now. And
yeah, it's really the Reaper of Souls that is when Diablo 3 got good, and you're right comparing it to Diablo 2. Like Torchlight 2 is a better Diablo 2, and Diablo 3 is its own just brand of awesomeness. And when you have the greater rifts in adventure mode in the expansion, it almost turns into an arcade game, just like speed clearing dungeons and finding the most fun and varied builds, and you don't have to make a new character to try a new build. The final evolution of Diablo 3 is one of the most fun games of its kind I've ever played. We did an entire retro encounter about it last year.
Yeah, and the console versions are great. I mean, they really made a great console action RPG. If I was living in a dorm still, like back in college, I would definitely own that, and we would be having drunken Diablo 3 nights like all the time. It is a very, very special game. I would, if we're going to move forward with Diablo 3 as a product, if this is very successful and they say, hey, we could, do little mini things. I always go back to the fact that Diablo 3 has some of the most interesting lore that Blizzard has ever made, with one of the worst stories ever written in video games. Like Diablo 3's story is dog shit. It's terrible. But the lore around the story, like the idea of like people going insane and like hearing Diablo like speaking to them at night, like very Lovecraftian-esque horror, that's really good.
I mean, that's Blizzard in a nutshell, though. Like the stories and narratives of almost all of their games are real weak, but they create so much lore and so much of it's really cool that I mean, there's novels and graphic novels about all of it, and even though like their cutscenes are always cool, and sometimes the plot points and plot twists are cool. I think that analysis applies to all of Blizzard. Really cool lore, really weak stories.
Yep, and who would have thought a hero falls from grace and becomes evil in almost every Blizzard storyline. I'm waiting for somebody to become the Arthas of Overwatch. Like it's such a played out trope.
I mean, Medivh did that in Warcraft 1 before Arthas did that in Warcraft 3.
Oh, it really, and then you have Kerrigan, then you have the Dark Wanderer, then you have what's her face?
In Diablo 1, you might even maybe Leoric, sort of.
Yeah, it really bums me out because like I have all that supplemental material for Diablo 3, like the Book of Cain, the Book of Tyrael, which go into all of the lore. I remember listening to the same guy who plays Campbell in Metal Gear Solid narrate the lore of Diablo 1. Like it's so creepy and dark, and like
Diablo 1 was maybe the first game I ever played that had collectible audio lore.
Yeah, and it was really creepy, and like I think almost to an extent Diablo has to be told like a fable, like have it be narrated instead of like characters talking about the fact that they're going to go fight Diablo. Like there's just something that needs to be worked on a little bit there, and I would really like Blizzard to kind of challenge themselves in a narrative sense, because that's the one thing that I keep coming back to Diablo. Like I fired up the story mode again just to see what it was like to hear the Necromancer's voice actor, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so bad. Like, just so terribly bad. And it's a bummer. But overall, Diablo 3 is still one of the best action RPGs you can play. A wonderful addition if you have friends that want to co-op either online or on a couch. It's really good stuff. You should play it.
Okay.
It's really good.
I'm not going to play it.
Why?
I really want to. I just don't have the time right now, and there's just way too
many
much
games.
right now. Yeah, too many games.
It is hard to go back to.
And Steph's busy like making bank drawing anime avatars for people.
That's true. That's true.
Persona avatars.
I don't want to know how much she charges. I was thinking about it, and I was just like, no.
You have to ask. You can't afford it.
Damn. Okay. I'm poor. I know. Bought that Nintendo Switch. I'm poor. So yeah, Diablo 3 Necro, lots and lots of fun. Definitely great. I guess the big news that we had in the past week is Nintendo wants to make money again. And they've decided to, hold on to your hats, because I'm going to blow them off, because nobody saw this one coming. They're making a SNES Classic.
Oh, really cruel and brilliant to lock away the unreleased Star Fox 2 thing on there too.
So that's the one thing that's the one thing that kind of made me like perk up a little bit, was like, oh, that's kind of neat. I mean, apparently Star Fox 2 was complete, and the story from Nintendo is that they didn't want that game released right alongside the Nintendo 64 because it was right at the end of the Super NES life cycle. I hope that can maybe give way to like, oh, I don't know, if Capcom was working on a remake of Resident Evil 2, how nutty would it be if they went in and just finished the original version of Resident Evil 2 and released it on disc with it? Like, just do crazy stuff like that. Like, show me prototypes of games that have been canceled. Like, that's really cool, but this SNES Classic, I just want them to do the virtual console thing. Like, I want to play all these games on my Switch, and this... I know why they're doing this, because there is a market for this sort of thing. You can walk into a Bed Bath & Beyond and find one of those Sega Genesis emulators where they have,
it just sucks that the scalpers are going to be all over that, and they already are, and it's already a disaster.
Disgusting. It's going to be disgusting, because they've said they're only going to ship the thing for 2017 as of right now.
But they also said they were going to make more production models than the NES Classic had.
I know.
It's
but
vague. It's vague, and it's coming out of Nintendo.
Nintendo has done so much right. I mean, we were coming out of an E3 where they announced 2 Metroid games. Like, I am officially in love with Nintendo again. But, like, I would just prefer them to get the Virtual Console up and running on the Switch. I mean, how awesome would it be if you had like a proof of purchase of a NES Classic or a SNES Classic, and they just said, like, I don't know, in January, oh, if you have one of these, then you would now have all those games on your Switch.
Do you think it's possible that, say, in 2018 sometime after they're no longer selling on market SNES Classics, would they add Star Fox 2 to a Switch Virtual Console?
I wouldn't be surprised if somebody does try to like rob it from the card or whatever. I also think it's still pretty crazy to charge $80 for something people can so easily emulate. I know that's not a good thing to talk about, but God, it's not even like all the games that people would really, really want. I mean, I love Kirby Superstar, but Kirby's Dream Course does not need to be there.
Okay, yeah, Kirby's Dream Course is maybe an outlier, but I think it has most of the games that people would want there. Like, I mean, if I was nitpicking, of course I would want ActRaiser and Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, how does this thing not have Chrono Trigger?
And,
like, that feels like a crime.
And no Ninja Turtles, no Final Fight, which basically is me saying that I want to beat him up on it.
Well, but, I mean, Konami doesn't like money anymore. Well, they don't like video. No, sorry, they like pachinko money, and they like their sexy pachinko games with sexy horror action or whatever the Castlevania game was.
But I don't want to be negative about it. If I were to get my hands on one, which is unlikely but possible, I'd play Mega Man X and Street Fighter 2.
I thought you were
so
talking.
Annoying, but it's almost like a lottery to actually have that thing. It frustrates me so much.
I did manage to get a NES Classic.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I gave it. But the thing is, I ordered one on Amazon Now to see if the service worked and I could actually get one. So I got one and didn't really want it because, I mean, the NES Classic, I figured, I'd play Mario 3 and Mega Man 2 and then never open it up ever again. So I gave it to a friend that really did want one as a Christmas present that last year. But I mean, if I could get a NES Classic, maybe I could get a SNES Classic because this is the machine I'm much more interested in.
Yeah, if you do, I will drive down there just to play like some player co-op shit.
We'll clearly have to play some Kirby's Dream Course and Street Fighter 2.
Yay!
I mean, Jackie managed to snag a NES Classic the last day they had them at Walmart. She got up at like 4 a.m, drove over to Best Buy. They got the last ones in. She was so damn happy, but I'm just looking at her like, there should be an easier way to play these games. And, you know, there are nefarious ways of playing those games. But, like, why – again, I'm going to rub it in Steph's face a little bit because she played a lot of my Switch that first day at E3. She just, like, cornered the market on my Switch. And, like, is that not, like, the sexiest video game device? And wouldn't you love to have all of these games there?
I honestly, I think it's absolutely nonsense, their entire selling tactic. I mean, you want people to play honestly, then make it available.
Yeah. And
I think it's a cute little gimmick, too, to actually make like a miniature version of the original console. So that's sweet. But I mean, it's great if they can have these games more readily available. The Virtual Console is pretty damn slow.
And also the Virtual Console for a SNES game is around $8, and for a NES game, I think it's $5 or $6. So like the value of the NES Classic and SNES Classic, I don't think is bad because like 30 games for $60 on the NES or 20 games for $80 for the SNES is better than the a la carte pricing on the Virtual Console. And as an appliance, we're even treating it like a toy, sort of. The classic consoles are cute and sort of neat. And some people would attach value to that. I don't think they're a bad idea. I do agree that I wish the service was better, and I wish the Virtual Console was better to, give us access to these games. But I'm not opposed to what those two classic console devices are, and I kind of want a SNES Classic.
Never, I'll never be upset at it. I just hate the rarity. It's
the scarcity of them is frustrating and borderline offensive.
I would have really liked if they released like some kind of Amazon Fire, or what's that Amazon thing that you plug into your TV? It's not the Fire, is it?
No, it's a Kindle Fire TV, I think.
Okay, yeah, like give me one of those damn things where you would then at the first year hear all your NES games. The next year you can pay the $80 and
I think it's just a Fire TV, not a Kindle Fire TV. My bad.
Yeah, but like you get what I'm saying, like something that you could plug in that would then you could download the games or something. It just, again, you're making the cute, kitschy little NES or SNES, and I agree with you guys. It's very cute, but like functionally, it's a pain in the ass.
I think that's what Sony was going for when they put in the Vita TV.
Yeah,
because they wanted a media device that also had a lot of games available for download on it, but it wasn't successful because the Vita library is a little weak less than the entire Vita library was on the Vita TV. But if one of the big game companies made a media device like that with an enormous library at reasonable prices, all of us would lose our damn minds and love the thing. But instead, we're getting these incomplete versions of that. The Vita TV didn't have enough games. These NES and SNES Classic devices don't have enough games, and I don't think they're equipped to add new games either.
Right.
Which is because if they launched the SNES Classic as a device with some size of hard drive on it, and then they released a couple games for it every month that had like a $5 pack to download more, I would buy one and spend money on it every month if the games are all right. And the SNES library is amazing, so I think they could do that.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. And
it's not what we get. It's not what it's going to be.
No, and this feels like we're all waiting to see Nintendo get its act together with the Switch and its virtual console. The plans that they've put forward were like the $20 a year, and they're gonna do like a Netflix style. Hey, we're gonna add games, and you're always gonna have this library of games. That could turn out to be something really special. But if it's a bunch of NES games that nobody really wants to play, like if they had Chrono Trigger day and date with the virtual console release on Switch, that would be a huge statement. Like Nintendo has the back catalog to really make this work. And this even further shows that the one company that's doing a really, really good job of backwards compatibility stuff, it's Xbox. And that kind of blows for me because there aren't a lot of games I want to play. But like if Sony would get their act together and make it so I could finally play my PlayStation 3 games that I bought again on the PlayStation 4, like how nuts is it that I can't do that? That would be amazing. Like I would, or even just PlayStation 2 games for God's sake. Like I bought both of the original Fatal Frame games because I really wanted to play them, but like they're locked into my PlayStation 3. I can't play them on my PlayStation 4. How nuts is that right now? Like, and this is going to lead to a great deal of piracy because you have enthusiasts who are going to want to preserve these games and make it so you can always play them. And that's what's going to drive the emulation market. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true. If it's easier for a pirate to play Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne on their PC because it's a real pain in the dick to play it on their PlayStation 3 and they can't do it on their PlayStation 4, that's what they're going to do. Like, I'm still heartbroken that my original PlayStation 3 died. I'm still upset over that. Like, losing that backwards compatibility on PlayStation 2 sucked. Like, I felt horrible about that. And I really, hopefully with this new console architecture, the PlayStation 5, whatever the hell that turns out to be, will be backwards compatible with the PlayStation 4. They've basically made these things into PCs now. Hopefully they've had some foresight to do that. But it's going to lead to massive emulation. I mean, why do you think NES and SNES games are so heavily emulated? It's because it's a pain in the dick to get those games otherwise. So,
yep.
I'm not mad about. I'm not mad about the SNES Classic. I just, I'm looking for things to play on my Switch, and if you gave me like an $80 download to buy all of those games and just have them on my Switch, I would do it.
That would be nice, actually. I actually even wonder, like, if they actually did do, like, even like a $60 kind of multi-gaming pack. A whole bunch of game companies have already done something similar.
Yeah,
like you can
buy Sega packs like that on Steam.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and I hate the fact that Nintendo is just seemingly against making money a lot of the time.
And I mean, and Rob's thoughts on backwards compatibility, I think, are shared by a lot of people. Because when you look at it, I think the best-selling standalone console of all time is still the PS2, and that was the first console to have major backward compatibility accessible. Like the fact that the PS1 was such a strong-selling console, and every PS2 can play 99% of PS1 games. I think like Tekken 3 and some other weird exceptions still crash on the PS2. Like that was a major selling point of it that Microsoft and Nintendo lacked in that generation. And the fact that not every console is supporting full backwards compatibility right now feels like a selling point that they're ignoring and not serving a population that wants that.
Yeah, and maybe we're all outliers, and we just want to play old games. And I think there's some aspect of that. You know, some gamers only want to play the newest game; they don't want to go back into the back catalog. That's fine. But in terms of game preservation, it is really important to have backwards compatibility. It really, really is, to be able to go back and play these games, and to have a history of games. I mean, think about, you know, the silent movie era. What is it, like 80% of those movies or like 90% of those movies are gone? Like they were never restored. They were never held in high regard.
The very first movie, the early recording of Frankenstein that like Thomas Edison had a role in, only has a surviving clip. And I mean, I've heard of famous silent movies like the Erich von Stroheim Greed McTeague adaptation that are considered classics of the genre that don't survive because they didn't have good ways of preserving film back then.
Yeah,
and I mean, just think of how much history is lost. I'm going to go thousands of years back. There's only works from surviving works from 4 of the Greek playwrights. And spoiler alert, there were more than 4 Greek playwrights, but we only have we only have works from those 4 because they didn't have a good way of recording and. Am I the only one who gets
like a small case of the blues thinking that I'll never be able to play some of my favorite games again? Just because of that?
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
It's like when I'm old and really want nostalgia from my youth, I don't know if I'll be able to go back. I don't know if I'll be able to go back and play. Oh, I don't know what's something weird on like the PS1, Soul Blade ever again.
Jumping Flash 2.
Command and Conquer on the PlayStation 1. You all played it.
Hercules, the video game, the Disney video game.
Oh my god.
I just want to watch the opening anime video to Wild Arms 1. That's all I want, but I won't be able to.
I can't. There it is. There it is. Yes, the game we were all playing until Final Fantasy VII. Stop it! Stop it!
I apologize to everyone. Maybe you'll edit that out.
Hey, no, we streamed that today, so...
Oh, nice.
You got to keep it in. You got to keep it in. Steph, are we still going to do Dark Steph? Are we still going to stream this?
I would love to. Hey, I got more time these days, so yeah.
Oh god, this is going to be really bad.
Did you finish Tales of Stephonia?
No, not yet.
Okay.
The plan is for Steph to play Dark Souls and me to help guide her through it.
I.e. yell at me and tell me everything I'm doing wrong.
I really don't know which one to start with, though. Like, if we start with 1, you're going to get so angry. It's going to be really, really bad. But 3 is very playable. That's the thing. Like, 3 is the easiest to play. So, I don't know. I also think I need to have a lot of scotch on hand for that, because it's going to kill me to try to guide you through it.
I really look forward to this. There's going to be tears, there's going to be blood, and there's going to be a lot of apologizing. And
yeah, you're just going to be apologizing to whatever you're trying to kill. Just like, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Oh boy. So the SNES Classic, it's interesting. I really want them to get their Switch together, just because, like, the Switch still... I know. The Switch still doesn't have Netflix, which pisses me off.
Oh, that's weird.
Like, I want that to have Netflix, because then that will be my official next Netflix, player.
Wasn't the usage rate of Netflix extremely high on, like, the PS3, PS4, Wii U?
I believe so.
Like, my PlayStation...
Oh,
go ahead.
I got a really awful anecdote, and okay, so I used to work at EB Games, and I went
already going to go
last
to a
week.
dark place.
I went last week to see if they had any Switches. They did, and my old boss was there, and I guess my old boss didn't like me, but I went to go get my wallet in my car, and he didn't hold it for me, and it sold while I was gone.
Oh man,
I was so cheap.
Oh, what a dick! Oh, we hate that guy.
I have a good GameStop story to balance this out that happened to me a few days ago. I was going into GameStop right after work on Friday to pick up Tokyo Xanadu, and I was there was a small line, and the kid ahead of me in line was buying the remade Crash Bandicoot collection thing, and he was something like $1.80 short or something. So I hear them like talk about it and say that he would have to walk home because he was a kid that had like biked there or something, and so I have a couple bucks in my wallet and I just give him $2 and I said, hey, don't worry about it, go ahead and just pick up your game, and he was real happy and thankful.
Oh.
And then as he was leaving, he gave me 2 fidget spinners that I did not ask for or need, because apparently teenagers these days just have backpacks full of fidget spinners. He rummaged around this backpack that seemed like it was full of the damn things. So now I have a one of those little 3-pointed ones and a little Batarang fidget spinner.
Oh, cute.
Man, totally off topic, but I was so disappointed by the fidget cube. That thing does not fit nicely in your hand. It just makes me more anxious.
No, we have them. We have 2 of them, and I thought, it's kind of interesting, but, I don't know.
Does it destroy the anxieties?
No, it doesn't, because I don't really have anxieties. I just nap. Like, if I'm just sitting around and there's nothing to do, I just sleep. I guess, so my funny anecdote story, as we're all sharing funny anecdote stories, is Jackie and I actually turned into a Switch commercial at one point. So we went to the live Philadelphia Mann Center performance of The Return of the King with a live orchestra, which was really intense. Like that was out of control, crazy. But at the intermission, I had brought my Switch, and Jackie was like, hey, can we just play Mario Kart? And we were close enough to like the stage where we could just put the Switch on the stage. And so we just busted out the 2 controllers, put the little console right up there, and we were playing Mario Kart at the Man. And that was just this really cool moment, but I was also sitting there having this nightmare scenario of like, God damn it, this is exactly what Nintendo wants us to do. Like, somebody's going to take pictures of this and post it online and be like, look at these nerds. And it's like, no.
Why would they say that if it's Nintendo doing it?
Well, I mean, someone's going to say, look at these nerds, and then everyone else watching is going to be like, damn, man, they're playing Mario Kart wherever the hell they damn want to play Mario Kart.
And to be fair, I thought you guys are nerds right to your face.
But it was really neat. Like, it really does show that console, its core gimmick really does work. The portability and the being able to go anywhere, or like, I'm sitting there and playing Cave Story, and first off, I still don't understand why people really love Cave Story. I beat it, and it's neat. I don't understand the love of that game.
I always thought that La Mulana was like La Mulana is a better version of Cave Story.
Yeah, but La Mulana, you need like an atlas to play that goddamn game. Like it is crazy. But like, I'm playing it, and Jackie says, hey, I want to watch TV, and I can just lift console out and start playing it, and I'm just going to keep talking about how this is saving my marriage, because it is really, really important for people to understand that this core gimmick works so damn well. And I know the next game from the Binding of Isaac people, The End Is Nigh, is coming out on the Switch, and I'm just looking to play anything on the damn thing right now just because of how convenient it is.
That reminds me of my Vita thirst around maybe last year or so, where any Vita release was enticing just because I love playing things in the Vita so much.
Yeah, that screen.
Honestly, 2017 has been better to the Vita than 2016 is, which is, fine by me. I'm buying like 4 Vita games this year.
I just always found that when I played a PSP game on the Vita, though, it looked really blurry. Like, Final Fantasy Tactics was like, it was hard to read the text in that game. It was so damn blurry. And I
recently finished Trails in the Sky second chapter on the Vita, and it was fine, but I don't know. Maybe they worked.
Maybe I was stretching the screen. There are so many different options. Maybe I just had the screen stretched incorrectly. Like I did that with Resident Evil 2 when I was playing it on the Vita, and then I switched it back to like the regular normal TV aspect ratio, and that was a lot better. Man, how salty do you think Sony is that Nintendo basically took their idea with the Vita and just made it better? Like they got the, as you were saying, they got like the Vita TV thing to work. They got the screen, which it is a very sexy screen. It's big. That's the only main complaint I have about the Switch is it is a pain in the ass to play on like a plane because it is just a little. It's a little big, makes it a little uncomfortable. But it is a really, really impressive console, and I'm going to keep saying that on this podcast over and over again because it's really awesome.
As you should.
I know.
Anyway.
You'll get your Switch soon, Steph. Just relax.
Oh,
but that guy's a dick. That guy's a dick. Oh, my Lord. All right, so Mike, Tokyo Xanadu.
Right. Yeah. I have been interested in this game for almost 2 years. It came out in Japan in late 2015. and I even imported the soundtrack because I was really excited for that game as it was coming out in Japan. And it's finally in my hands. Axis is localizing both versions of the game. The Vita one just came out a couple days ago, and the PS4 version, which is enhanced and has some extras, is coming out in the fall alongside a Steam release of the PS4 version. So, but I'm playing the Vita version, the original one, now. I'm about 3 hours in or so, and it's all right. I'm not disappointed by it because I'm just finally playing the damn thing, and I knew I sort of would like it no matter how good or bad it was. But it has like Ys adjacent action combat that has more of a third person over the shoulder cam to it, and it has its visuals and setting and gimmicks and everything unrelated to combat. I mean, insert your own Persona joke here because it is so much Persona 3 and 4 in everything you do outside of combat that it's a little weird. Like it's you're a bunch of high school students that travel to another world to defeat demons that are slowly entering the real world. You fight in your school uniforms. There's an idol girl and a delinquent kid and a martial arts girl. You can deepen your bonds with certain classmates by hanging out with them between dungeons. There, you have free time segments where you hang out with people like this. You explore the city and the school a lot in between major story beats. It's diet Persona. It really is.
But is it written as well as Persona? Like, do
No.
you actually want to spend time with those characters?
The characters are all right. Like the main character he does part-time jobs all the time, and his gimmick is kind of he's a little bit sick of everyone else's crap, but and he's a voiced protagonist and not a silent protagonist. And the characters are okay, but the real strength of the Persona games, especially the recent ones, is the writing and the dialogue, and this is not at that level. This is like a C+ B- version of a Persona story. But the combat's all right, and there's a lot of stuff to do, and I'm mostly enjoying myself, especially since I'm still pretty early in the game. So they're introducing new activities and new tasks and new wrinkles to battle every time I do a new section. I'm in the beginning of chapter 3 for any listeners that are playing, but I like it. It's not bad, but I'm not gonna say it's great. It's like a 7.5, 8 out of 10 kind of game. And it's the story and visuals and gimmicks feel like Persona Lite. So yeah, that's my early impressions of Tokyo Xanadu, which I will continue playing to the end. I think there's no deal breakers on it that make me want to quit, and I'm not close to wanting to stop playing. But I don't want to overhype it, if that makes sense.
You said Persona 3 and Persona 4. How does it feel in a post-Persona 5 world? Does that make it feel kind of antiquated?
Well, no, because the games play so much differently. This is an action-y combat system with timed dodges and character switching and special moves and aerial combat. It feels like a slightly less like almost as good as like the best Ys games in terms of combat. It's similar to Ys, but the camera is different, and the controls are okay. I don't think it's as good as as a really great Ys game in terms of combat. But I mean, what Persona 5 does with its themes and tones and having really good dialogue and how damn stylish the game is, it does not hit any of the Persona 5 high notes. Tokyo Xanadu.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't hate anyone in the cast, and the dialogue's not bad. It's just it feels okay. And the reason I'll play the Persona games for 80 plus hours each is because the dialogue and characters are significantly better than okay.
You're not selling me on this.
I know.
Yeah.
And, I don't. The thing is, I like it a lot, but I was anticipating this game for 2 years, and I have a biased perspective, and I'm trying to uncloud my rosy vision I have for what I wanted this game to be. But I think it's not bad, and there's a lot of good parts, but it's not everything I wanted it to be. And if you were to accuse it of Persona mimicry, I wouldn't disagree necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not necessarily bad to
No, exactly, yeah.
It works, but
Certainly better than Akiba's Beat's attempt at that.
I would rate Tokyo Xanadu more highly than Akiba's Beat or Akiba's Strip. But I think that maybe Falcom was trying to create a new franchise with this because, they've like the first Xanadu game, which was a very pioneering, important action game in 1985, was one of their earliest successes. And and Tokyo Xanadu came out on the 30th anniversary of Xanadu 1. And I think maybe they were trying to make a game that was less fantasy and more urban and sort of maybe make a new franchise with Tokyo Xanadu and continue with a urban, flashy RPG with this one. But I'm not sure if it was successful. I don't know if it was successful enough to go forward with that because the game is okay, but it's not lighting anyone's world on fire, and that's justified, I think.
So there's no like one thing that it does like really well that like you're like, okay, like this is why I'm playing this game.
There really isn't. It's a bunch of gimmicks that are all okay, but if you wanted, like, even staying within Falcom, if you wanted a good story and characters, I would recommend one of the recent Trails games. And if you wanted really cool action and giant boss fights, I would recommend an East game. And if you wanted stepping outside of Falcom world, if you wanted a game set in a modern Japanese city with great characters and set in a school atmosphere, I would recommend any Persona game other than Persona 1. And I think there might be some Persona references in there. So there's an old man named Yamaoka in the coffee shop in Tokyo Xanadu, and there was a very similar looking old man butler named Yamaoka in Persona 1. So I wonder if that's a knowing reference or not. But I also should mention the game is not dubbed. It's in Japanese language, but with full English translated text. And there's a lot of voice work. There's like an alarming, almost every major scene is voiced. It's a huge amount of Japanese voice work, and the main girl is voiced by the lady that voices Zelda in Breath of the Wild. But this is an all right Japanese RPG that does a lot of things good, but nothing excellent, and it doesn't. I don't know if it stands out in a major way, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm going to continue play it.
I do like that they're making strides to kind of do a revamped sort of director's cut version though for the PS4. So maybe they kind of took some of those criticisms. I'm not too sure what part of it it's going to address, but if it makes the experience better, I think that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, the PS4 version is the one that they had at E3, and it wasn't in English at all. It was only Japanese, and it was only the first dungeon. But it controlled a little better than this one and looked good. But it's a pretty good action RPG with a lot of trappings. And I like it a lot, but I think I'm probably going to overrate it relative to, say, other RPG fan people. And it is being played for review by another staff member, but I don't know how far along he is.
We know it's a he.
It's Roro, but it's Rob Rogan. But he and I haven't talked much about it.
Well, I'm skipping this one.
Yeah.
There's too many other games to play, man. I feel bad for Tokyo Xanadu because it sounds like there's just no room for this kind of 7.5 in the middle of a release calendar that has been mildly insane this year.
Yeah. I would not stop playing Persona 5 or Nier Automata or Breath of the Wild to fire up Tokyo Xanadu.
Did you play Breath of the Wild, Solosi?
No.
Okay.
I don't own a Wii U or a Switch.
I'm looking forward to your thoughts on Breath of the Wild, and not because I'm trying to get an entire army together of people that hate that game, because no, I don't hate it either. But like, it's just very interesting, like watching people's responses to the DLC. Like, I have zero desire to buy the DLC for Breath of the Wild.
I've heard the new DLC is incredibly difficult too, like obnoxiously so. Like they put a Lionel like right in the starting area that you have to walk around.
Yeah, they're not fun to fight. Like, what was the thing you were telling me at E3, Steph? That like the whole like the flurry.
So,
explain that
so
to me again. I was drunk. I couldn't understand what you were trying to tell me.
So no, allegedly there's a guy who did a pretty in-depth analysis of Breath of the Wild, and what he noticed is that the flurry rush thing that happens, where everything goes slow-mo and you can pull off a whole bunch of attacks, like a lot of games are wanting to do now. Apparently, it'll only activate for an attack that would have missed anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he says, and he hopes he's wrong, and so do I, quite frankly. But yeah, because that would be. I feel like the combat should have been way more finely tuned for a game that is as difficult as it is.
Yeah, there were a lot. It actually makes sense to me because there were times where I'm like, hey, wait a minute, how did I not dodge that? Like, I couldn't get a feeling for whether or not Link had invincibility frames.
Yeah,
just
and
take
like I always
damage.
tried to figure it out and trying to get better at combat, but it never worked. Apparently, they made the timing for the Guardians a bit different too, like the beam flashing.
Oh God.
Everything is basically up to class, so like originally red enemies are now bumped up to a level higher, so now they're blue. Black is turned to white, etc. They have like these kind of floating areas where like enemies can attack you from above.
Yeah, none of that was the best part of Breath of the Wild was the exploration.
Yeah, so I feel this kind of makes it just even more of a stressful game to play, and I don't want that.
No, and I did not like some of the combat scenarios were really cool in Breath of the Wild. Like the first time you find one of those like skull camps and like you knock out a lantern to like light everybody on fire and blow them up. That was really cool the first time I did it, but then realizing that, oh, I got 10 rupees for doing that, and now all my equipment's busted, and now I'm really pissed off at this damn game. Like, the best part of that game is the exploration, and I think doubling down on the combat part of the game is a real mistake. Like, that's not the part that they should have been interested in. Like, if they gave you a whole new like continent or like just a piece of land, like one of those strips
That would be cool.
like that would have been the right way to go about doing it. Or I don't know, a good
Like even
dungeon.
as is, like I don't find like dungeon trials really that interesting.
No, I think there's a whole lot in that game that is mechanically very impressive, but I don't know that it adds up to a whole lot. Like
So like I'm basically I want to get it just so I could get the whole season pass. Like some of the new armor is pretty cool and it's got cool effects. But also too, I still wish there was a bunch of other tweaks they did, like equipped all armor of the same set, you know, or petting a dog. I just want to pet a dog.
Yeah, the pet dog option needs to be in there. And again, I don't want people to think that I'm crapping all over Breath of the Wild. Like, I still really enjoyed that game, but
Yeah.
I think much the same way that like I came out of Witcher 2 or Witcher 3 with like a, hey, this is like an 8.5 for me. I kind of feel the same thing about Breath of the Wild, where I'm like, mechanically there are some things that I really don't like. I don't think the 100 shrines are a good substitute for classic Zelda dungeons, and I think the 4 dungeons that are in the game are pretty bad. Like those dungeons they're all exactly the same. They use exactly the same mechanics, and you can beat them in any order, which is impressive on the one hand, but if I want to play a Zelda game, I'm probably going to pick up A Link Between Worlds before Breath of the Wild.
I love A Link Between so much.
I love A Link Between Worlds, and I think Breath of the Wild could make a very excellent Zelda game next time. Like they need they need to make some really good dungeons. Like that's what they need to do. Like,
I love Breath of the Wild, but I completely agree. I really want to play, you know, Breath of Fire Redux, whatever's next.
yeah, like I want to see where they go with this, and I think we're gonna get it out of Metroid. I think Metroid could go nuts. Like, think about what with Nintendo being as crazy as they are right now, with a game where you throw a hat onto a T-Rex and you get to control it in Mario Odyssey, and Breath of the Wild, for all of its problems that I think Steph and I are outliers because that game's going to get flowered with praise this year. That game is still an excellent game. Think about them, like, what if they're just sitting there going, why don't we just make a whole goddamn planet for Metroid? Like, let's just do it. Let's just make a full planet that you can go through in Metroid Prime 4. Like, I want to see Nintendo
visit all 200 Chozo statues.
Oh my god! But like, I want to see them narrow the focus down a little bit. Like, traditional dungeons in Zelda games are a lot of fun, and that's where most of the enjoyment comes out of. And I find it so weird that the ultimate high point for a lot of Zelda games is not present in Breath of the Wild. Now, I'm sure somebody can make the argument of, oh, the entire world is the dungeon, but like, yeah, but all you're getting is a piece of heart or a stamina burst from everything that you do in that game. But meanwhile, there are those shrines that give you like the climbing gear, which is essential, and I wish that the game funneled me toward those instead of just, oh, I beat another shrine to get another piece of shrine, whatever, the shrine orb, and I still have to get 3 more before I can get an upgrade.
That's why I think the non-linearity in Link Between Worlds was so strong, because they controlled what your first 3 dungeons were.
Yep.
And they did that to introduce the mechanics and get people very comfortable with everything that they were capable of. And then in the second 2/3 of the game, they just drop you into this beautiful, more challenging, more non-linear open Zelda game that is like a better version of the best parts of A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
I think I really, really like A Link Between Worlds, and I kind of just talking about it kind of makes me want to replay it now. But
I'm feeling you too.
But there's something appealing about total nonlinearity, but also there's weaknesses when they commit to that total nonlinearity. And I'm just rehashing what you've already said, but there's got to be a happy medium that they can find with the next big Zelda game that could make it really, really awesome.
Yeah, if they just took all the mechanics of Breath of the Wild and then put it into a Zelda game which had, structure maybe is the wrong word, but a little bit more of a point, or a little bit more. I mean, for people to complain about Skyrim dungeons where you go into a dungeon in Skyrim and you get a piece of armor that's, less than what you're wearing. I mean, that is kind of a lot of Breath of the Wild too. So I don't really.
Would you say Skyrim is more or less aimless than Breath of the Wild in terms of the nonlinear content?
Man, that's really tough.
Which one has more of a narrative focused or narrative thrust?
Well, definitely storytelling was not the focus for Breath of the Wild, right?
No, but I think that at the very least, the thing that I can say in Breath of the Wild's defense is when you get one of those shrine orbs, it does make you stronger, and the whole point is to make you strong enough to beat the final boss. So I do like that perspective of the game. I like the fact that you're doing all these things to make you stronger, so for the final battle, you don't get your ass kicked and die in one hit. But I didn't find it, like, those shrines had very interesting mechanics sometimes. Other times they were those trials of strength things that they could just take those out of the game as far as I'm concerned. Like, that's, again,
it never changed. That was so weak.
Yeah, that was weak. Some of the dungeons were just not fun. Like some of the mechanics were just not fun. They're all palette swaps. I think in short bursts, I maybe enjoy Skyrim a little bit more, because at least when I'm using the mechanics of Skyrim, I'm leveling up by like sneaking or by doing magic attacks or one-handed attacks. Like, I'm constantly leveling up, so at least when I walk out of the dungeon, I've gained a few skill points. Whereas I think Breath of the Wild, like, yeah, some people are going to be really, really excited. I know if Steven was on this show right now, he'd be yelling and screaming at me that, like, all those puzzles are worth the price of admission alone. But there wasn't enough.
Steven has strong feelings about the things he likes, though.
Yes, he does. And I totally respect that. And I'm the same way about the things that I really like. So I see where he's coming from. But some of that, like, oh, I did this really neat puzzle in Breath of the Wild, and all I got for it was this T-shirt. Like that. Like, that bums me out a little bit. And I just think Breath of the Wild needed a little bit more incentive. It needed more of the stuff like the climbing gear. Like, if they went down to 50 shrines and every one of those shrines had a piece of equipment at the end of it, I would have totally been down. Like, that would have been cool. Like, oh, here's the shrine that gets you a headpiece that you need for this one area later on in the game. Like, that would have been really, like, not necessary, but helpful. That's the part of the game that would have been really cool. I also think, in the game's defense, the traversal pieces were like, you have to get through the hot area of the game, and so you need to find, like, the way through that path to get to Mount Hyrule.
You need to find the Various suit. I understand.
Yeah, you need to find the Various suit. Like, that was the really, really high point of Zelda for me. So I hope that, and this is one of the reasons I'm very excited that the Metroid game is being done by an internal Nintendo studio. I really hope they look at Breath of the Wild and the things that game did well, because I think you can make a really kick-ass Metroid game with a little bit more focus. So, like, you're not just now you'd be getting an energy tank, like, and that's very useful in a Metroid game. So, like, make it so there's maybe less content and more meaningful content in Metroid. So, Breath of the Wild's great, but it is a little aimless in certain places. And Steph, I wish I had had you on the show when Derek and Steven were, like, ready to fight me over Breath of the Wild and how much I loved it.
I loved it, like you, but yeah, I can't overlook the flaws without mentioning them and bitching.
Yeah, and anybody that says that whole rain mechanic in climbing is a good thing can just go to hell.
Oh, I actually like that, so.
No, you can just go to hell. Like that's just the part where like I put the controller down and say, well, I guess I'm just not going to play Breath of the Wild for like 5 minutes. Okay.
Because it's too easy to just climb over everything. And that's essentially what I did. I barely fought anything in that game. I just climbed over mountains.
Well, because fighting in that game sucks.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but like I think the arrow shooting's really good. I wish there was
Arrows
more
were
of
great,
that.
but honestly, basically what it comes down to is the whole durability thing just completely ruined it for me.
Yes, it does.
It really does.
Everyone rejoiced when they got rid of the durability crap in Fire Emblem, and now Zelda's adding it to their formula, and who wants that, honestly?
Yeah.
I did not rejoice for that in Fire Emblem.
Oh, really?
Jesse's a purist, damn it.
I was so happy that bronze swords don't break anymore, and only like the best weapons do. Really? I thought that was the biggest problem with old school Fire Emblem.
Get him, Jesse. Get him.
I don't know. It's they made it anyways. But I'll say about on the task at hand, Breath of the Wild. Like I haven't played it. I don't have a Switch or a Wii U, and part of the reason is because Breath of the Wild doesn't really seem that interesting to me. Like I feel like I can, like I've heard all of your critiques, and like there aren't those really well crafted, well constructed experiences in the same way as other games. So I feel like it would just kind of get old after a while, after you kind of got used to the exploring.
Yeah. That's how I felt. I mean, I had 40, 50 hours of really, well, I'll say I had 10 hours of amazing, holy crap, this is so open and I'm blown away by it, followed by like 30 to 40 hours of, yeah, I'm kind of just doing enough of this until I feel like I'm done. Like, it was funny when Steph picked up my Switch, she was like, oh, you didn't do this, 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 and this? And I was like, yeah, because I was kind of done. Like,
well, I mean, with Skyrim and Breath of the Wild, I think that you can sort of get as much as you want to get out of it. Like when you start feeling fatigued by chasing after Korok seeds and shrines, you have the path to the final boss and beating the game in front of you, right?
Yeah, which is really cool. I like.
I know people have been talked to this to death because this game's been out for months now. But it's I think that it's good that you can play it for as long as you want to play it. But I mean, a lot of us have the instinct, oh, we should try and do everything, but maybe don't. But maybe we get fatigued on Breath of the Wild too early, so that instinct to try to do everything sort of, diminishes how much we like the game.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
No, I think
I actually haven't beaten it yet. I did more than Rob, but I still haven't beaten it, so that's kind of funny.
I think I was actually really pissed off because the final boss, you need to know how to do the shield deflection thing, and I had never done it. So, like, I died on the final boss one time and then had to go to YouTube and figure out the timing on that shield block.
Doesn't every single Zelda game since Link to the Past have a shield deflection or sword deflection endgame boss encounter?
Yeah, Rob.
But I use the tennis. I use the bug catching fly net in Link to the Past because I'm awesome. No, but it just kind of sucked because like this was a thing I had not done in the entire game, and now the game is horsewhipping me because I didn't actually do it. Like that to me felt kind of crappy. It was actually very similar to the game that Steph's going to play, which is Dark Souls, where like if you did not learn how to counter, like the final fight with Gwyn in 1.0 version of Dark Souls was just not fun because it was like, oh, I've never had to counter, and here's this boss, this final boss of the game, that if I know how to counter, he's really easy. Otherwise, I'm going to have the worst experience of my life. He's a lot easier now. He's much easier now, but
just get good.
Yeah, or I could just get good, like the internet tells me. No, I think Breath of the Wild is super admirable, and it's going to show up on like everybody's best game ever list. But I still maintain what I've said on a couple podcasts now. I think in a few years, like maybe in a year or two, that's when you'll start having the really interesting conversations about Breath of the Wild.
Where the Zelda cycle continues.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it is the Zelda cycle. Do you guys remember when Skyward Sword was apparently the best Zelda game ever made? Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, didn't Reggie say that he didn't think Skyward Sword would be topped by anyone for years or something like that?
Come on, like like I was there for the Twilight Princess backlash when like everybody except Jeff Gerstmann, who gave it the 8 over at GameSpot and nearly got killed for it.
It wasn't even that. It was like an 8.4 or something.
Yeah, but like he almost got murdered for that. Mm-hmm. But then like I was there when like the One Up Yours guys were saying that Twilight Princess was the best game ever made, and then like 6 months months later, people started saying they didn't really like it. I was there when people said Skyward Sword had amazing combat, and then everybody said, no, the Wii motion controls kind of sucked. It is the Zelda cycle. It is the opposite of the Sonic cycle.
Yeah, Gersman gave Twilight Princess an 8.8.
Oh, what a bastard!
And people were mad about that, which is basically just everyone on the internet is just a giant baby once they have anonymity and no consequences.
Right, and Jim Sterling, I think, gave Breath of the Wild like a 7 or something, which, I totally agree with him on his review. I mean, Jim and I were the only ones who really spoke out against Dishonored 2 when everybody was losing their mind over that game, which, by the way, the DLC for Dishonored 2 actually looks way more interesting than vanilla Dishonored 2, so maybe that's where all the creativity went. But there is a cycle with gaming, and you can't have fair criticism if the second somebody criticizes the game, you immediately want to shut them down and say, no, you're wrong. I invite criticism. The people that gave Dark Souls 1 bad reviews, I read those criticisms, and you bet your ass that From Software read those criticisms to make a better game after that. That's how you make better games. And if we just keep telling Nintendo, no, you're good, you've done everything perfect, how are you going to get a better game? They listened to people when it came to the linear-ass design of Skyward Sword, and they made Breath of the Wild in response to that, which was a real net positive. Now, did they maybe still get some things wrong along the way? Absolutely, I think they did. And they can make a better game next time. Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever the hell they want to call it.
But are you a little worried that Breath of the Wild 2 or might just literally be a Breath of the Wild 2 with that's a little too similar to Breath of the Wild because of this lack of a lack of sort of blanket criticism?
From Majora's Mask.
That's a good counterexample, Steph. Thank you.
Right, and I think that could actually lead to the Metroid Prime 1 or 2 problem, where Metroid Prime 1 was amazing. I really don't like Metroid Prime 2 at all. I think the light and dark world stuff in that thing is just obnoxious and very, very uninspired and unintuitive. It's not fun. I think
the opposite of that, which is my favorite example of a game studio listening to criticism, are the first 3 Prince of Persia games on the PS2 era.
Oh my god!
The first one had this great storytelling and great tone, was awesome, but the combat was terrible. So the second one had a much darker tone and worse story, but the combat was really interesting and fun. And the third one literally combined the 2 versions of the Prince from the first 2 and kept the good combat and the lighter tone whenever you switching between the 2 different princes.
Yeah.
So when you see a studio respond to criticism and have it reflected by changes to their sequels is very heartening to me. And I don't know, I want to think that Nintendo's going to look at every weakness in Breath of the Wild and have the next Zelda game reflect those criticisms, but maybe there isn't. Maybe it was too praised. I don't know. We're getting to some real weird speculative stuff here.
No, I can see what you're saying. And by the way, I remember playing the demo for Prince of Persia: Warrior Within, and when the girl showed up with a thong, and then the prince went,
lady in red. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the prince went, "You bitch!" I was just like, "Whoa, what in the hell happened here?" I think what Breath of the Wild 2 has is, one, the durability's gone. I firmly believe that is out the window, and it's going to be one of those things where the people that defended it are going to feel really weird when Nintendo's like, yeah, we got rid of that because people didn't like it. And I would say the next game has traditional Zelda dungeons. I think it'll still have shrine-y things, but I think the next game will have traditional Zelda dungeons, because that's my biggest criticism on the game is those 4 dungeons are a poor substitute for anything that came in the 3D Zeldas. They're just not. They're incredibly well crafted, because when you think about it, you have to play them at any point in the game, which is really unique, but they're not interesting. And you do the same tilting mechanic with all 4 of them, which is really damn lame. That's basically doing the Ice Temple 4 times. That's not cool. And if any other Zelda game did that, you would hope people would complain. But I think there will be valid criticism of Zelda coming down the line. I don't think we get another Zelda game for another 5 years. It might not even make it to the Switch. They have time. I would like to see them really take what they've learned here and roll it into Metroid. and I think they can really do that. And
the dream is a whole 2D Metroid planet.
oh god,
Oh.
Remember, and maybe towards the core, the gravity changes, and it rotates a little bit so that you're staying upright, and the whole layout of the world is affected by your position relative to the core.
I need a cigarette. I think Mike just took care of me for a while. So, anywho, moving away from Zelda and Metroid. Jesse, you played in a little Nier Automata, correct?
No, God, that game is good. How is that game so good? I don't.
I love the rare occasion where I can boot up a game and expect to feel really bad, and get super sad.
Well, now I want to ask because everybody, if we were just talking about the Zelda cycle, I've heard a serious Nier cycle where everybody starts it and they're absolutely in love with it. Then about the midpoint, they start to get a little tired of the combat and they want the game to end. And by midpoint, I mean like around ending 3 or 4. And then at the end, they're like, oh my God, that experience was amazing. But like, where are you right now in the Nier spectrum, Jesse? And then Steph, I know you've beaten it, so I want to get Jesse first and then move over to Steph.
Yeah, so I'm working my way through ending 2. I'm almost toward ending 2. So clearly I'm not at the point where I'm like tired of the combat or something. I'm not at the trough in the Nier cycle. And it's hard to talk about this game without spoiling it, right? Because
please don't.
Yeah.
You gonna try to play it?
I'm going to play it. It's just, as Mike has been saying, it's a question of time, and I was really hoping that the Steam sale, it was going to come down to like $30, and it only came down to $40, and I am trying to save a little bit of money, and I have way too many other games to play. I really want to play it, though. I really want to play it.
I don't know when I'll ever get to it. I know it's great, and I'll probably like it a lot, but I was already Nier Automata took me totally by surprise when so many people loved it and it got such positive reviews. Not because I wasn't expecting it to be good. It just wasn't really on my radar. But now that it is, it's on my radar along with dozens of other games. So I don't know if or when I'll ever get to it.
Jesse, I didn't mean to cut you off there, so keep going with your Nier talk.
Yeah. So I was just saying I don't want to spoil anything. I think people know that there are multiple endings, and you have to play the game multiple times to get those multiple endings. And it's so I've heard that sort of later playthroughs are very different, and so that might be sort of what contributes to it. Like, so basically the first 2 playthroughs are they're similar. So it might be like by the time I'm done with that, I'll be like, I want something new, and then they feed me something new, which I don't know, Steph, you can.
First gameplay is really, really good. Second one gets pretty tedious because it's a lot of the same content. The third and fourth are significantly shorter, but much, much more different. It's a really, really cool game. Like I said, there's very few games out there that actively try to go out of their way to make you feel bad about everything happening. The game is really good at making you understand, different concepts of love and relationships and what it is to live. And then it has a beautiful way of destroying all that goodwill and good feeling.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The music, of course, is absolutely phenomenal, and the game does a really good job doing sort of ambiance in a lot of their soundtrack pieces. They also work in a little bit of 8-bit into it in a very interesting way. And it's really cool. The gameplay is a bit repetitive, especially after a while, because the enemies just aren't really that interesting. But it's still more than enough to take you through the entire game to have a really good experience with it. One of my favorite things that's, of course, back is they do weapon stories, which, same thing, pure Yoko Taro style, and he did it for all the Drakengard games, is that the more you level up a weapon, the more elements of a story you get. It's usually a 4-part story. And it's similarly very dark and depressing and usually very ironic.
Yeah. I really want to play this game. It's just a question of when, and also the people saying that it gets repetitive, I think that's going to be tough on me. I think you can drop the difficulty down at any point, though, right?
Yeah, so that's essentially what I did for a part of the second run. I was just kind of
Yeah.
moving
And in the
on.
second run, like, so there are some quests, like side quests that are shared, but if you complete them in the first run, you don't have to do them again. So the second run is taking me a lot less time, actually, because I spent so much time on the first, trying to do everything and do every quest.
Mhm.
And I've actually found it's pretty easy to like pick up and then leave it.
Yeah.
Like, so you don't have to get sucked in.
The other issue for me is that I want to play it on PC, and that PC version, people are still really not happy with it. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be one of those lucky people that, buys it on PC and it works just fine, or if it's going to be like my experience with some games where it's like, yeah, that game never really played well. So I don't know. I think that's part of it. I know Platinum's really trying to do a really good job of their PC releases lately, the Bayonetta port and Vanquish port.
Yeah.
So hopefully they get their act together on Nier, but like I want to play that on PC. It's just that PC version people are not happy about right now.
Yeah. Although I've also heard that a lot of the negative feedback on the PC version is actually Chinese gamer, like in China, complaining that they don't have a Chinese language version.
Oh, okay.
So they're kind of teasing the reviews a little bit. That's what I've heard. I haven't looked at it myself.
I do want to play it. How long, Steph? How long is it going to take me to like see everything in that game? Because if you say over 40 hours, I'm going to groan.
It's like 20.
Oh,
for you especially, yeah, I think you'd probably get through it. I don't think you would 100% it.
Yeah, so like you don't have to get those like 6 main endings. You don't have to 100% it, right? You just play through like.
No, and the requirements are really easy, so it's honestly not that hard to get through.
It's not like Nier, like the first Nier, where you have to do all the weapon stories, because that is like.
No, I was able to get it, and honestly, in the last couple of endings, you can get that like the last 2 for sure, maybe even 3. You can get in like 5 hours.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
if that, like it's really quick.
Yeah, and then I can just turn it down to easy if I get tired of the combat at some point. But then there's also Pillars of Eternity on my Steam list, and I feel really bad that I still haven't played that. Mike, please yell at me. Please,
Rob, that's a very, very good version of one of those games, and you should play it.
I know, but that damn boar, I complained about it to the guys at Obsidian at E3. I was like, dude, that boar that you threw at me at the start of that game, holy crap, I hate you. Like, that thing just annihilated my entire party, and I felt emasculated.
I started playing that game out as a paladin, and you choose what version of a paladin you are, like what god you worship and where you're from, and your stats get better the more paladin-like you act, in like referring to which god you're worshiping.
I think that's they told me to play as a paladin, so I might do that.
A Cypher is maybe the most fun version of a rogue bard sort of like charisma class that I've ever encountered in a Western RPG.
Yeah,
because they're basically a talky rogue, but you can use like psychic powers and illusions to influence people, and it's awesome.
Would you say that over a paladin, or?
I would say just do whatever when you think sounds coolest, but try to recruit all the characters so you can get a feel for how every class plays. Because if you recruit all the characters, you get at least one of every class. And my favorite companion was the Cypher companion, even though I was playing as a dwarf paladin.
Okay, I still want to play that game. Just I'm so bad at those CRPGs, though. I'm so bad at them. Like if something goes wrong in combat, I just like throw up my hands and I go, I don't even know. I don't even know.
I mean, it's not as bad as playing an old Infinity Engine game like going back to Baldur's Gate 2 or Planescape Torment now is hard because those were always very challenging combat systems to get your head around. But Pillars of Eternity softens the blow of that a lot. I only played the first act, so I probably am at the 45 or 50% mark. But I enjoyed it the whole time through and just got sidetracked by other games.
Yeah, I might wait for the Steam Winter Sale to play Nier. I know that'll be like out of Game of the Year consideration, but I still have Persona 5 to play. And then, God, September is going to get nuts with Danganronpa V3. I do, even though I really, really didn't like Dishonored 2, I want to give their DLC a shot because that looks really interesting. Then we've got The Evil Within 2, which for the love of God, please let that be good. Wolfenstein 2 will be awesome. I'm not worried about that. And then Mario Odyssey is going to destroy my life.
I've I've hosted a lot of Retro Encounter episodes in 2017, but I on purpose let someone else take care of the game of the month for April just so I could play Persona 5.
Yeah, I need to get back into that.
It's real good, man.
I know, I like it. It's just there's something so time sinky about it, and like.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I think I was on the quicker side, and I beat it in 92 hours.
Yeah, I just so many games,
Too many games and never enough time.
So last thing I wanted to talk about was Jesse. Tell me what your thoughts were being on the outside of E3. We would have loved to have had you there, but obviously you're busy as hell with work these days. What was E3 like to you this year? The outsider looking in.
It was kind of like it was disappointing for me, I think. So, being in news, I was just focused on trying to get all of the news written as fast as possible. And it didn't really seem like there was, at least in the world of RPGs, like there was not that much going on, not that many interesting announcements, like nothing that I'm really looking forward to from them.
Mm-hmm.
I had heard about how crowded it was, so I don't envy you guys that. Yeah. Nintendo like blew it out of the water, and everyone is happy about that. But again, I don't have a Switch. Like it didn't generate a lot of excitement for me.
Yeah, it was weird to like see everybody coming back from Sony, and like Colin and I were chilling in the hotel, and I was just sitting there going like, I thought Sony's press conference was bad because like all those games look good, but we knew about every single one of them. Like there was no giant surprise. Like,
well, I mean, there was Monster Hunter World and the Shadow of the Colossus remake, but I agree that it was in general underwhelming, and the lobby with an open bar was more exciting than the conference itself.
God damn it!
And the mini hot dogs.
Oh yeah, and the mac and cheese bites.
Oh, I didn't have that.
Yeah, the open buffet and open bar were really good at the Sony conference.
I'm so mad at both of you.
Why? Oh yeah.
Yeah, the lobby was supposed to be really good because that would have been a chance to actually like play Ni no Kuni 2 and not have to wait in line or anything.
Yeah,
like that.
they had a lot of the open demos for Sony things in the lobby that were easier to play then because they didn't have lines.
Well, and I wish we had made appointments with the Sony Europe people because they were doing all those cell phone based games, like the one game from the Until Dawn guys that got a lot of really positive press, and I'm like,
right, that's called what is that thing called?
Hidden Agenda.
Right, that looks awesome.
Yeah, I really wanted to check that out, but they were appointment only, and I'm sitting there going like, that's like the most interesting thing to me that I want to see. Not David Cage's.
It's not exactly
Detroit.
It's a PS4 game, but the multiplayer for it is run through a cell phone app.
Yeah, and that sounds really, really cool. Way more interesting than Detroit. So, like, I don't know. It was next year's E3 is going to have to be really different, and I do hope that if they decide to keep it open to the public, they need to have their public days, like have competitions and stuff the way PAX does. The place over by Bethesda that had like all their Twitch streaming and you could watch Quake Champions, like they need more of that, and that was very poorly attended. I mean, if they put a bar over there and some of those mini hot dogs, like you will get a lot of people coming over to check that out.
The open air fighting game community show had a live stage where there was fighting game competitions with a different game each of the 4 days. I think it was Street Fighter V one day, then Tekken one day, then I think maybe Mortal Kombat X or Injustice 2. I forget. I think it was Injustice 2, third day. But they had competitions and celebrities playing each other. So I got to see Freddie Prinze Jr. play Tekken against a professional wrestler, and that was a very interesting experience.
What?
That's weird.
That is weird. And the thing, okay, so that's kind of like cute, right? Freddie Prinze Jr.
That's cute.
John Cena or whatever. But if you're really into esports, like there are other venues, better venues to watch esports.
Right.
Like very soon, Evo will be beginning.
Yeah,
That's the best esport event as far as I'm concerned. But I'm biased.
So, yeah, I think that the conference really needs to figure out why it wants to exist, and this is not the first time that they've had to grapple with this.
Mhm.
So we'll see. Interesting times.
Yeah, I feel like we don't hear about what their plans are until like probably late next year. Like I wouldn't expect us to hear anything about whether it's public until January. So I don't know. Maybe they really reform it and make it into something special. But if it's going to turn into PAX, then just it needs to turn into PAX, and then it's not going to be about the media, and it's not going to be about sales and marketing. I mean, if you watch those people that work for these companies, I mean, half of their meetings are about, how many numbers do they ship to Amazon? How many numbers do they ship to EB? Like, that's the stuff that's all going on behind the scenes at E3 that's different than the media, getting their hands on games and giving previews. If you want to eliminate that stuff, then okay, that's totally fine. But then you can't even have the illusion that that stuff is still going on. You need to have way more kiosks. That new Donk City thing was amazing at Nintendo, but you need to just have more actual games to play there for the fans and do fan community stuff.
It makes all the sense in the world to, I know we've already mentioned this, to do the Tokyo Game Show model where they have 2 public days and then 2 media days. The media days coming first, with each day having the different companies re-strategize to have more meetings and more journalism focused stuff in the media days, and then opening up with more gimmicky community events for the public days. It makes all the sense in the world, and I think the only reason they opened it up to the public was because too many of the companies were concerned about losing time or money, and they're trying to make up some of the money with ticket sales.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what they do next year, but right now it's kind of in this weird middle ground of it's not PAX, but it opened itself up like it was. And there also wasn't enough to really justify that. I mean, E3 has gotten smaller every year I've been there. And so there was a lot of empty space. I mean, it was kind of weird to see just on the periphery of each hall, like half the hall wasn't being used when you think about it. And everything was all condensed and very close in. Because
There's only 2 halls.
Yeah, and these companies spend a ton of money to get this booth space. And, the one year with Konami before they sold all theirs, they just had the oil rig from Metal Gear Solid 5 and no games to play or see. Like they basically just had like cardboard cutouts around in case they decided to make video games again. So, it was really cool seeing that Shadow of War dragon. Like that was really impressive, but that's a lot of space that could be used in a better way, especially for fans if you're going to let fans in.
Oh God, Shadow of War is such a boring title. It just totally took me a minute to clue in what that was.
I know.
Yeah, I think it does help a little bit that I think it's basically a subtitle, right? Isn't it like Mordor Shadow of War or something?
Middle Earth Shadow
That was
of War.
it. Yeah, that's it. That softens it a little bit, but I still think it's a terrible title that makes me think of like 8 other games.
Well, it wasn't the worst title of E3. That went to Detroit Become Human. But I think also the Shadow of Mordor / War games, I just wish that wasn't Tolkien. I would play the hell out of those games if they were anything but Tolkien, but something feels... one of my colleagues here is a Tolkien expert. Like he actually goes and does talks about Tolkien, and like he will talk your ear off about all the things that Peter Jackson did right and all the things Peter Jackson did wrong. Man, he will go a long way. But like something feels kind of dirty about those games, and I can't really think of any other way to describe it. But if those were just Dragon Age games, like Dragon Age spin-offs, I would play the crap out of them. But it feels really weird to play this Batman Arkham style game in a Tolkien world. Something.
Well, I mean, orcs in Dragon Age are a very different thing on their own as well. But I agree with you. Like having these characters ostensibly be Lord of the Rings orcs and elves feels wrong because it doesn't match what Tolkien is at all.
Right, and if it just was its own IP or something else, I'd be really into it because mechanically I really liked
That's
what
not how everything works now. I mean, look at the Jumanji movie. They just wanted to
Oh.
put their name on it.
Oh god.
Yeah, isn't the new Jumanji movie about a video game and not a board game? That was the thing that surprised me the most.
I guess the difference is that I don't think any of us are nearly as attached to Jumanji as we are to Lord of the Rings.
Right, and so we could let that one go a little. Well, I mean,
Fine.
with Robin Williams being gone, like there is a little bit of an attachment there. But
Oh,
it's
now I'm sad.
I know,
Thanks, buddy.
but it's like it's like when they did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and you're just like, if this isn't Gene Wilder, why are you doing this? Like, so I just wish that Shadow of Mordor or whatever the hell you want to call it.
I like
that-
Mordor.
That's what it should be. I just wish that was mechanically something else, like just another IP. And I know that seems like a very strange thing to want, but I can't. I own Shadow of Mordor and I want to play it, but something feels very wrong about that. Maybe I just need to drink more scotch and I'll get into it. I don't know.
I think people are generally more accepting of that one than this new one, based on what we've seen of the new one. But
Yeah, there's also the criticisms going around about the fact that you're basically recruiting people and like mind raping them to take them over and have them join your army, which that's probably a little weird. Like that.
That's a choice, I guess.
Yeah, something about that doesn't feel quite right. So I don't know. I wanted to get into that game, but it looks functionally very cool, and at least it's not another Batman Arkham game because I'm really done with those.
Are they working on a fifth one of those?
You know they are.
We're working
Yeah.
on Spider-Man.
No. It's Insomniac is doing Spider-Man, not Rocksteady. I don't think we know what Rocksteady's doing next.
But Spider-Man might as well be a Batman Arkham game.
Okay, that's a fair commentary. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jesse, I misunderstood you at first.
It is Spider-Man Arkham City, which is cool.
I am actually interested in that game because I like Insomniac in general. I'm a big Ratchet and Clank fan. I even wrote some 1,000-word nonsense diatribe on the forums once about Ratchet and Clank. But I mean, the game looks action-packed and the web swinging looks cool. And if they make a Spider-Man game where the web slinging is fun, then that's at least something.
Yeah, that takes us all the way back to what was it, 2001 Spider-Man 2? Yeah,
it was the PS2 Spider-Man 2 adaptation, which I think was a little later than 01. That was maybe like 03 or 04, but that's the Spider-Man game that people could keep going back to.
Yep. So, well, I think that about wraps it up for this episode of Random Encounter, unless anybody else has other things to talk about.
Do we prefer pepperoni or pineapples on pizza?
First off, Gordon Ramsay says that pineapple on pizza is an atrocity. So I agree.
He's right.
He's right.
I don't care what anyone says.
Oh, you West Coast liberal.
I don't hate pineapple on pizza, but I mean, come on, pepperoni is like the classic pizza topping, and pineapple does not match up to it.
Well, all I know is Steph's kept getting mad at me for constantly suggesting we get pizza at E3s.
We had it twice, and you kept suggesting it a third and fourth time, dude.
I will eat.
We're only there for 5 days.
I will eat so much. I got that breakfast slam thing almost every day there, and that was
good.
We did end up going to that Mexican place 4 times, but that also they loved us, and that place was great.
That place was really fun.
This is wonderful.
They closed down the pool, which made me very sad at our hotel because I like going down there and sitting and writing by the pool.
We went to some cheap hole in the wall Thai place that gave us such a mountain of food that none of us could finish it. It was awesome.
I finished it when you brought it back for me. I finished it.
That was the Chinese place the last night. I was talking about the Thai place right next to the hotel.
Oh, okay.
Steph, Peter, John, and I went there.
Oh, okay. God, I don't even remember anything.
Yeah, it turns out there's a lot of places to eat in Los Angeles.
Yeah, who would have thought? Mm-hmm. But it's definitely fun, and I love seeing you guys. I have to seriously consider whether I go again because this was a frustrating year. But maybe they turn it into something really cool next year. They're
do
gonna
MagFest or do E3. You must do one or the other.
I really want to do MagFest because that way Solosi will get those ridiculous pizzas again. And then we'll have another eternal game of Uno that just
I
goes
cannot-
on.
I can't believe we played one round of Uno for 45 minutes. That seems impossible, but we did it.
That wasn't right. That wasn't right. We probably could have ended that game like 3 times and we didn't realize it. So, anywho, thank you everybody for listening to the podcast. For Mike, Steph, and Jesse, thank you all for listening, and we will see you later.
Woo!
Stop it. Nobody likes Wild Arms.
That's
I
a
love
lie,
that
and you
game.
know it.
Yeah.
All right. I gotta
Okay.
get-
I think we're done.